Necromancer MD, Murder in Millbrook by M.E. O'Brien Hughes. Prologue. The Impossible Victims. The psychiatric facility's common room smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. Ian Martin sat in a moulded plastic chair that had been bolted to the floor. One of many precautions designed for people who could no longer be trusted with their own bodies. His hands trembled in his lap, fingers picking at the hem of his hospital-issued shirt. The fabric had grown soft from countless washings, all institutional green and resignation. "Ian, can you tell me again about that morning?" Dr. Patricia Vance kept her voice gentle, therapeutic. She'd been assigned to his case 3 weeks ago, the fourth psychiatrist in as many months. The others had transferred out, citing philosophical differences with the facility. Patricia suspected they simply couldn't stand listening to his particular delusion, day after day after day. Ian's head snapped up. His eyes, once shrewd and calculating, the eyes of a man who could sell you a house you didn't need and make you thank him for it, now darted around the room like trapped birds. "Which morning?" "The morning you went to church." A laugh bubbled up from Ian's throat, cracked and manic. "Oh, that morning? Yes, I remember. I always remember. Can't forget. That's the problem, isn't it? I remember all of it." Patricia made a note on her tablet. Patient demonstrates persistent delusional disorder with paranoid ideation. Symptoms unchanged despite medication adjustment. "Tell me what you remember, Ian." He leaned forward, and Patricia fought the urge to lean back. Ian's intensity had a physical weight to it, pressing against the air between them. She was there, Mrs. Henderson, Eleanor Henderson, standing in the third pew on the left, same spot she always took, singing Amazing Grace off-key like she always did. "And you believe this was unusual because I drowned her." Ian's voice rose, echoing off the common room's cinder block walls. Two orderlies near the door straightened, hands moving toward their radios. Patricia held up one finger. "Wait." And Ian continued, softer now, but no less intense. 3 months before, in her bathtub, held her head under the water until she stopped struggling. She was dead. I made sure. I checked her pulse. Nothing. No breath. No heartbeat. Dead. Patricia kept her expression neutral, clinical. She'd read the case files. She knew what Ian Martin had done, or claimed to have done. The problem was that none of his supposed victims had actually died. Eleanor Henderson was alive and well, living in her Victorian home, perfectly healthy, save for a nasty case of pneumonia that had kept her bedridden for 3 days. The very 3 days Ian claimed he'd murdered her. And yet she was at church, Patricia prompted. "And yet she was at church." Ian's hands clenched into fists, standing there, breathing, smiling at me when our eyes met. Smiling, Dr. Vance, like she knew, and she was enjoying it. "What about Thomas Grayson?" Ian's laugh this time was closer to a sob. "I saw him at the grocery store, Tuesday afternoon, produce section, squeezing the avocados. I strangled him with a belt in his own living room. Watched his face turn purple, watched the life go out of his eyes. But there he was, asking the store clerk if the avocados were ripe. Talking, breathing, alive." Patricia tapped her pen against her tablet. "Ian, you understand that these people are alive, yes? That they never died." "They did die." Ian's voice dropped to a whisper, forcing Patricia to lean forward. "They all died, every single one. I'm very good at killing people, doctor. I'm methodical. I'm careful. I check. I don't make mistakes." "Then how do you explain Connor?" The name came out like a curse. "Dr. Connor McMasters. He did this. He brought them back." Here it was, the centre of Ian's delusion, the conspiracy that tied all his fractured thoughts together. Patricia had seen it before, the mind creating elaborate narratives to protect itself from unbearable truth. In Ian's case, the unbearable truth was that he'd had a complete psychotic break, attacked several of Millbrook's residents, and imagined he'd killed them all. "Tell me about Dr. McMasters," Patricia said. Ian's eyes went distant, looking at something Patricia couldn't see. "He's always there. At the hospital, when they brought Eleanor in. Said she'd nearly drowned in the tub, but he revived her. At the scene when they found Thomas. Wasn't breathing, no pulse. But Connor got his heart started again. Every single time. Every single one. Always him. Always with that smile. What kind of smile? The kind that says he knows something you don't. The kind that says he's playing a game and you don't even know the rules. Ian's hands were shaking harder now. He's a necromancer, Dr. Vance. A fucking necromancer. He raises the dead. That's what he does. That's his gift. Patricia made another note. Patient's delusion includes supernatural elements. Displaces responsibility for his actions onto imagined conspirator. Dr. McMasters, respected local physician. Ian, you were charged with 9 counts of attempted murder. You weren't successful in killing anyone because he brought them back. Ian surged forward, and this time Patricia did lean back. Ian's chair scraped against the floor with a screech that made everyone in the common room freeze. His voice climbed toward a scream. I killed them. I know I did. I've killed people before Millbrook, before Vermont, before anyone knew my name. I'm good at it. But he resurrected them, every single one. And now they walk around like everything's fine, like they didn't die, like I didn't see the light go out. Ian. Patricia's voice cut through his rising panic. You need to calm down. But Ian was beyond calm. He grabbed her arm, his grip desperate and surprisingly strong. Patricia's training kicked in. Don't struggle, don't escalate, but her heart hammered in her chest. You have to believe me, Ian pleaded. Someone has to believe me. They were dead. Mrs. Henderson, Thomas, Margaret, David, Rebecca, Harold, all dead. And then Jennifer, beautiful Jennifer Wu, who never hurt anyone, never did anything wrong. I killed her because she knew. She figured it out. And he returned her too. Resurrected her and made me watch them all walk around alive again when they should be rotting in graves. His fingernails dug into Patricia's arm. He's out there right now, Doctor, walking around Millbrook, playing doctor, raising the dead whenever it suits him. And everyone thinks I'm crazy. Everyone thinks I'm the monster. But he's the monster. He's the one who won't let them die. He's the one who won't let death mean anything anymore. Ian, I need you to let go of my arm. He watches me, in my dreams, in my waking hours. Everywhere I look, there's Connor McMasters with that expression, that look of triumph. He won, he won, he won, he won. Patricia caught the eye of the orderlies. They moved with practiced efficiency, crossing the room in seconds. Ian, we're going to help you calm down, one of them said, hands gentle but firm as they extracted Patricia from Ian's grip. Ian didn't resist. He never resisted anymore. The fight had gone out of him weeks ago, replaced by this manic insistence. This impossible story he told anyone who would listen. As the orderlies guided him toward his room, single occupancy, locked door, 15-minute checks, his voice continued, softer now, but no less urgent. They were dead. I made sure they were dead. I killed them. Check the records. Check the hospital records. All of them. Treated by Connor McMasters. All of them returned from death. You have to see the pattern. Someone has to see the pattern. His voice faded down the hallway, trailing off into muttered fragments. Necromancer. Impossible. They won't stay dead. Won't let them die. The doctor always wins. Patricia stood in the centre of the common room, rubbing her arm where Ian's fingers had pressed. Around her, the other patients had already returned to their activities. A card game in one corner, a puzzle in another, a television playing daytime talk shows to an audience of glassy stares. No one wanted to think about Ian Martin and his wild stories. No one wanted to consider what it meant to be trapped inside a truth no one would ever believe. She picked up her tablet and added to her notes. Patient remains fixated on delusional narrative. Recommends continued medication and increased security. Prognosis: poor. Subject will likely remain institutionalized indefinitely. Asterisk. As she walked toward the exit, Patricia allowed herself one moment of something that might have been pity. Yes, Ian Martin had hurt people. Yes, he'd terrorized a small town for months. Yes, he deserved to be locked away from society. But there was something genuinely tragic about a man so thoroughly trapped in his own mind, creating ever more elaborate explanations for a reality he couldn't accept. She paused at the facility's main door, looking back down the hallway where they'd taken Ian. His voice was still audible, a distant murmur through the walls. They were dead. They were dead. They were all dead. Patricia shook her head and pushed through the door into October sunshine. Behind her, the Millbrook State Psychiatric Facility rose against a backdrop of autumn leaves. All those brilliant reds and golds that promised beauty, while delivering nothing but the slow death of another year. Inside, Ian Martin rocked in his locked room, still muttering his impossible truth to walls that would never answer back. 3 months earlier. The October morning was perfect, one of those crisp New England days that made Vermont famous. Mist rose from the river valley in wisps, burning off as the sun climbed over the Green Mountains. Connor McMasters ran his usual route through Millbrook, his breath misting in the cool air, his expensive running shoes finding their rhythm on familiar sidewalks. He'd been running these streets for 3 years now, long enough to know every crack in the pavement, every house, every face behind every window. Long enough, he supposed, to call it home. Though Connor had learned not to use that word too freely. Home was a temporary condition when you'd been alive for 400 years. His route took him past Eleanor Henderson's Victorian on Maple Street. All that architectural beauty, painted in cheerful yellows and blues. Eleanor was a creature of habit, obsessively so. Up at 6 every morning, newspaper retrieved by 6:15, tea brewing by 6:30. Connor could set his watch by her, which is why the newspaper, still sitting on her porch at 8 a.m., caught his attention. He slowed to a jog, then stopped. The bathroom window, second floor, north side, was fogged with condensation despite the cool morning air. Connor's easy smile faded. His mind, trained by centuries of medical practice and simply surviving, began calculating possibilities. Eleanor was 73, healthy for her age, but with a history of dizziness. She lived alone since her husband died 5 years ago. She was proud, independent, the kind of woman who wouldn't call for help even if she needed it. Connor approached the house. "Mrs. Henderson?" He knocked on the front door. "Eleanor, it's Dr. McMasters. Just checking in." No answer. He knocked again, louder. "Eleanor?" Silence. The back door was unlocked. Typical for Millbrook, where people still believed in small-town safety. Connor pushed it open. "Eleanor? I'm coming in. Don't be alarmed." The house smelled like Earl Grey tea and furniture polish. Everything was neat, orderly, exactly as Eleanor preferred. A teacup sat on the kitchen counter, steam still rising from it faintly. She'd been up this morning then. Recently. Connor climbed the stairs, his footsteps silent on carpet runners that had probably been there since the 1970s. The bathroom door stood ajar. "Eleanor?" He pushed it open. She lay face down in the bathtub, water lapping at her ears. Her hair floated around her head like a halo. Her skin was pale, pruned from extended water exposure. One arm hung over the side of the tub, fingers nearly touching a fallen bathrobe on the floor. Connor moved into the room with the automatic efficiency of someone who'd seen thousands of deaths. He checked for a pulse at her wrist. Nothing. Her neck. Nothing. Her skin was cool to the touch. Body temperature dropping. The water was lukewarm, no longer hot. She'd been here a while. He studied the scene with an analytical eye that was equal parts physician and something ancient. The bathtub was full. Too full, really, for someone Eleanor's size. The water would have been nearly to her chin when she first got in. There was a slight bruise forming on her temple where she might have hit the side of the tub. A slip then. Lost consciousness. Drowned. Except Connor's eyes narrowed. Eleanor Henderson was terrified of bathtubs. He knew this because she'd told him during one of his house calls last year when he treated her for a sprained ankle. She had almost drowned in a bathtub when Eleanor was 7. She'd never taken a bath since, only showers. Always showers. She'd been adamant about it. So why was she in a bathtub now? Connor pulled out his phone, finger hovering over the buttons. His training said to call immediately. His experience, the kind of experience you only got by living through plagues and wars and witch hunts, said to think first. The bathroom window was still latched from the inside. No signs of forced entry. No defensive wounds on Eleanor's hands. No obvious trauma beyond the bruise on her temple. Everything pointed to accidental drowning. Everything except Eleanor's very specific, very consistent fear of bathtubs. Connor looked at Eleanor's body again, and for just a moment his expression shifted. The concerned doctor mask slipped, revealing something ancient and inhuman underneath. His hazel eyes caught the morning light streaming through the fogged window, and the gold flecks in them seemed to glow. He'd seen countless deaths, more than any mortal should witness. Natural deaths, violent deaths, stupid deaths, and tragic deaths, and deaths so prosaic they barely registered. He could read death like other people read books, every bruise a sentence, every wound a paragraph, every body a complete story. And this story didn't make sense. Connor's internal monologue whispered a single word: murder. But he shook his head, pushing the thought away. He was being paranoid. Centuries of staying hidden, of always looking over his shoulder, of never quite trusting anything. It made you see threats in shadows. Eleanor had drowned. An old woman, dizzy, perhaps confused, perhaps trying to overcome her fear. It was sad. It was preventable. But it was not suspicious. Connor dialed 911. This is Dr. Connor McMasters, calling from 447 Maple Street. I need emergency services. I found my patient, Eleanor Henderson, deceased in her bathtub. She appears to have drowned. No, I just arrived. I'd estimate she's been dead 3 to 4 hours based on body temperature. Yes, I'll wait here. No, I won't disturb the scene. He hung up and stood looking at Eleanor's body. His face settled back into its usual expression. Concerned, professional, appropriately distressed. Anyone watching would have seen exactly what they expected. A good doctor dealing with the unfortunate death of a patient. They wouldn't have seen what Connor saw. They wouldn't have noticed how his gaze lingered on the specific angle of Eleanor's head, the precise amount of water in the tub, the way her hand seemed positioned just so. They wouldn't have felt the whisper of wrongness that centuries of survival had trained him to detect. In the distance, sirens began to wail. Connor ran a hand through his hair, making it appropriately disheveled. He took a deep breath, let his shoulders slump. By the time the EMTs arrived, he would be the perfect picture of a shaken but composed physician. But in that moment, before the sirens grew close, standing alone in Eleanor Henderson's bathroom with her body cooling in the water, Connor McMasters allowed himself one honest thought in the Irish dialect of his youth. Tarud eigin contrailte ansio. Something is wrong here. He didn't know yet how right he was. Didn't know that Eleanor Henderson's death was the first move in a game he hadn't agreed to play. Didn't know that somewhere in Millbrook, another mind, clever and cruel and just as calculating as Connor's own, was watching and waiting and already planning the next move. All Connor knew was that Eleanor Henderson shouldn't have been in that bathtub. And somewhere in his mind, in the part that had kept him alive through plague and war and inquisition by trusting nothing and questioning everything, a small voice whispered, "What if you could bring her back?" Connor didn't listen to that voice. Not yet. He'd spent centuries running from what he was, hiding his nature, using his gifts only in the most desperate circumstances. He was a doctor, a healer, a man who'd learned to blend in and never draw attention. But the voice whispered anyway, soft and persistent, as the water lapping against Eleanor's cooling skin. What if? Outside, the sirens grew louder.